Your Excellency the Governor, Honorable Deputy Governor, Honorable Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Premier, Honorable Leader of the Opposition, and Honorable Deputy Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Cabinet members and councillors, Honorable members of the Legislative Assembly, members of the Youth Parliament, special invited guests, friends, family members, and well-wishers, good morning. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome you all to the 10th Youth Parliament of the Cayman Islands. The theme for this year's Commonwealth Day is a peace-building Commonwealth. The Commonwealth's 53 member countries have a combined population of more than 2 billion, of which more than 60% are younger than the age of 30. The increasingly large youth demographic in the world highlights the need to take into account young people's needs, aspirations, and challenges. And these motions today give our young parliamentarians the opportunity to be heard. The Commonwealth sees young people as assets who should be empowered to realize their potential and contribute fully to national development. We must therefore encourage and support them as much as possible and give them every opportunity to achieve. Youth Parliament is definitely proving to be one very effective way to achieve this. Throughout the past 4 years, I have seen our Youth Parliament members achieve a better understanding of political participation and parliamentary democracy. Practical experience gained through the preparation and debating of motions have given them the opportunity to acquire or improve on many necessary skills such as debate, presentation, public speaking, research, and organizational skills. The Commonwealth mission is to empower, engage, and create value so that young men and women can contribute to the economic, social, and cultural advancement of their families and countries, and to their own personal fulfillment. I would now like to welcome this year's Youth Parliament. I welcome Eli McLaughlin, who will be taking on the role of Premier, and Bianca Magoo, who will serve as Leader of the Opposition. I wish these young people the best of luck in leading their teams through today's debates. Today, 26 students from private and government high schools will debate two motions. First motion is called Creation of a Policy to Address Educational Skill Gaps, Analysis and Adjustment. And the second motion is called Amendment to Section 228A of the Penal Code, Child Pornography. I would like to congratulate the Youth Parliament for choosing subjects that are topical and timely and very relevant to concerns expressed in the wider community. I have spent some time working with these young people, and I can promise you that today's debates will be lively and very informative. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome you to this 10th Youth Parliament on this Commonwealth Day 2017. I also wish to thank the CPA Cayman Islands branch, the Clerk of the Legislative Assembly, Mrs. Zena Merrin Chin, and her outstanding team, and my fellow Youth Parliament Committee members, MLAs Mr. Bernie Bush and Mr. Winston Connolly, and of course the youth parliamentarians, all of whom have worked extremely hard over the past few weeks preparing for today. I would also like to thank the members of Cabinet, namely the Honorable Premier, Mr. Alden McLaughlin, the Honorable Attorney General, Mr. Samuel Bulgin, and Honorable Tara Rivers, who assisted the Youth Parliament members by meeting with them to discuss their various roles in government. Thank you also to Ms. Nina Walsh, Ms. Lisa Malice, Ms. Melissa Rivas, Mr. Johan Moxham, Mrs. Bina Mani, and Mr. Leno Christian, who all assisted the members with their preparations. And so it is now my distinct pleasure and privilege to turn over these distinguished chambers to this assembly of articulate and enthusiastic young people from all across the Cayman Islands. Thank you all, and please enjoy today's debates.
Good morning. Protocol already having been established, I would now proceed to read the Commonwealth Day message by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, head of the Commonwealth. Theme for Commonwealth Day being celebrating a peace-building Commonwealth. This Commonwealth Day, a baton will set out from Buckingham Palace and begin a long and extraordinary journey. Over the next 12 months, the baton will visit people living in the nations and territories of our Commonwealth family in every continent and ocean. Carried on its way by thousands of people of all ages and backgrounds, by the time it reaches its final destination, the Queen's baton will have brought together, through its role and symbolism, almost 2.5 billion people who share the special connection of being Commonwealth citizens. Contained within the baton will be a written message that will be open and read at the Commonwealth Games in Australia next year. However, there is even a more powerful message to be seen and experienced as the baton passes from hand to hand, from seashore to mountaintop, through cities, towns, and villages. It is the message of peace-building Commonwealth. The cornerstones on which peace is founded are quite simply respect and understanding for one another. Working together, we build peace by defending the dignity of every individual and community, by upholding justice and the rule of law, and by striving for societies that are fair and offer opportunities for all. We overcome division and find reconciliation so that the benefits and progress and prosperity may be multiplied and shared. As members of the Commonwealth family, we can find much to be thankful for the inheritances that we have received from those who came before us. Through consensus and cooperation, great things have been achieved. We can find further reward and fulfillment by continuing to collaborate with others in a spirit of goodwill to build a peaceful and an abundant future for all Commonwealth citizens. As Speaker of the Legislative Assembly and on behalf of all honorable members, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome all today, and I look forward with great anticipation as the youth deliberate and consider and come to solutions and indeed valuable conclusions with the various problems facing our nations today. God bless you, and may He give you a liberal application of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding as you so do. I thank you.
Mr. Chairman, protocols have been established, and I'd just like to add my welcome to everyone. I would like to commence my comments by stating how important this program remains as it supports the political development of our young people, providing them with the opportunity to become politically aware and responsible citizens by involving them in our political thinking, especially at such a time as this. When I was told that I would be a part again this year of the opening with a theme entitled A Peace-Building Commonwealth, it did give me a moment of pause and my focus on the Commonwealth historically and being a citizen from a jurisdiction that is still a British dependent territory has been on its contribution to helping us build our brand of democracy in these islands. And as one of the longer serving politicians, this in my mind has been one of the most profound contributions to our islands as the Commonwealth is a voluntary association of communities that operates on the basis of consensus, which in turn encourages us as leaders to adopt a more consensual and participatory democracy. Indeed, the values expressed in the Commonwealth's Charter seeks to embrace democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Values expanded through the Singapore Declaration of Commonwealth Principles issued in 1971, where members agreed to operate, including aims of peace, democracy, liberty, equality, and an end to racism and poverty, and B, refined in the Harare Declaration of 1991 to set the Commonwealth on a new course to include good governance, human rights, and the rule of law, gender equality, and sustainable economic and social development. In more recent times, we here in the Cayman Islands, like many other Commonwealth communities, often equate the Commonwealth with the now famous Commonwealth Games held once every 4 years, where our athletes have participated and done well, especially in swimming. But the Commonwealth must mean more than the games, although sports is an avenue for building lasting relationships and bonding. So I continue to ponder the notion of a peace-building Commonwealth. Today, if you turn on the American press, listen to reports on the indiscriminate use of weapons, the grinding, unresolved conflicts between Israel and Palestine, North Korea testing its nuclear technology, and plight of Syrian refugees. Of course, we have our own brand of conflict, and the need to build tolerance and peace, very evident when we look at what is reported in some of the press in these islands today. Many of the bloggers don't mince their words when saying mean and untrue things about being one of us, Caymanian, or on matters of interest to all of us. They sometimes shame the concept of Caymankind, sometimes disgracing our culture and encouraging disunity. Critics of the Commonwealth, rightly or wrongly, are quick to argue that the Commonwealth today is past its time. They say it's a post-colonial club of nations with very little influence, especially that resemble a jamboree for political elites, while a lot of its citizens languish in poverty or have their liberties shaved. Some even contend that complacency and inertia may pose the most serious threat to the continued relevance and vitality of the Commonwealth. But is the Commonwealth relevant enough to build peace in our conflict-ridden world today? It was the Commonwealth, along with the USA and members of the European Union, that participated in the anti-apartheid movement and assisted with its dismantlement in the mid-1980s. There were many agreements, many eminent persons grouped from the Commonwealth which enforce political, sporting, cultural, and economic sanctions. And that was achieved even though the Commonwealth is relational. The Commonwealth is not a formal group like NATO and allows instead for a relaxed and enriching meeting of minds and cultures. There are many, many organizations that do well, not just for Commonwealth countries, but for others as well. These characteristics, for instance, were particularly useful in the context of breaking up the anti-apartheid movement. And I speak of it because being a part of Commonwealth and being a part of the Commonwealth Association, I had an opportunity to be on the executive committee that helped to look at these issues in South Africa when that movement was progressing. Whilst many of the Commonwealth nations involved with the apartheid movement, anti-apartheid movement, found the former Prime Minister of England, Mrs. Margaret Thatcher, divisive, they continued to work with her and later conceded that she had a much better grasp of the complexities and the geostrategic realities of South Africa that many of her contemporaries and she consistently and correctly, I say, believed that much more could be achieved through constructive engagement with that government rather than through draconian sanctions and isolation. And she also understood the need to consider the concerns and aspirations of all the people there in their search for constitutional consensus. And that's what Commonwealth is all about, consensus, and it is about constitutional consensus. The Iraqi-born human rights activist Faisal al-Mattar, I think it is, and I quote what he had to say. What too many people fail to understand is true peace and prosperity cannot be forced upon a populace by outside groups. The Middle East is filled with hatred, ignorance, and bigotry. Most of that is a result of religion, tribalism, racism, nationalism, failure of communism, post-Cold War policies, absence of modern political ideologies, and on. The only way, he said, the civilized world can help the uncivilized world would be through educational programs, protection of human rights activists, and funding people who share our values, unquote. How then does his suggestions fit with Commonwealth ideals? And do they? We must remember the Commonwealth focuses on raising the standards of democracy and human rights and governance, so perhaps they do fit nicely within the Commonwealth's mandate. In '63, John F. Kennedy observed, and I quote, "When a man's ways pleases the Lord, the scripture tells us, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him." And is not peace, in the last analysis, basically a matter of human rights, the right to live out our lives without fear of devastation, the right to breathe air as nature provided it, the right of future generations to a healthy existence, unquote. So Mr. Muttar believes that the right to live without fear involves proper education. And I agree with the gentleman's that education is the game changer. The ideal is a top-flight public education system with high standards, is universally accessible, and facilitates the introduction of new ideas with relevant and effective technology. Communities are more likely to be tolerant if they are educated and beats a path against violence. It is also easier to harness social cohesion where there is ethnic and religious diversity. This we know from our own personal experience in our islands, where over 135 nationalities are represented in a population of around 60,000 in 2015. And the other ingredient mentioned by Mr. Al-Mutar is the idea of protecting human rights and human rights activists. The Commonwealth has done this before. I gave you the example of its participation in the successful dismantlement of apartheid. But the Commonwealth has also had a history of turning a blind eye to human rights abuses, as in the case of Turkey and Sri Lanka. Perhaps in raising the idea of peace building, as our theme suggests, and as the Queen's message talked about, the Commonwealth is being reflective, rethinking its purpose in the face of contemporary conflict as we see it. Even in the United States, our best partner, which is not a member of the Commonwealth, but introduced policies that many consider to be inhumane, intrusive on people's lives, and spends $1 billion on an election while its people, its veterans, sleep under the bridge. The Commonwealth remains nonetheless the only organization outside the United Nations where the rich and poor countries that represents a quarter of the world's population congregate and speak as equals. It can use the strategies that worked before, that is sticking together, discussing the issues as evident with the anti-apartheid movement, and devising strategies that support and not duplicate existing organizations with similar values and intentions. In so doing, it still has the potential to become a powerful agent for change, for peace in our conflict-ridden world. I've been to many of its meetings, the Commonwealth Finance meetings, Commonwealth Health Ministers meetings, all these we learn a lot from. My challenge to you, Youth Parliament, in closing today, is what can you do as Caymanian young parliamentarians to assist the Commonwealth in this process of peace building? It must start here, I should suggest, in your own community first. Whatever you think or plan, your own community first. You must learn to live together without rancor or strife. Be careful who you listen to as teachers. Respect for each other, no matter where you have come from, no matter where you have been born, or where you have lived. All of us, all your peers living with you, must live and move and have their being in that respect and without strife. I wish you well in your deliberations. There are many new faces, and for this I'm glad, as I think you fulfill the reason for a youth parliament. That is so that you can debate in this chamber the issues of the day and those for the future, and then you learn the process of this legislature. When you come to take our places, and there's a lot looking to take them right now, I don't think any of you, but there's a lot, you will have known some of this. And I believe that Cayman is going well at the caliber of young people that I know is coming into this youth parliament, but the hundreds of young people outside that don't come, but do a good job in their community. They are learning, they are willing, they want to be a part. And as senior parliamentarians and elected members, it is our duty to see that that happens. I wish you all well.
Good morning, everyone. I want to add my welcome to those who have gone before me. I just said to the leader of the opposition, I don't think there's anything left to say now. But I am immensely proud of the young ladies and gentlemen who have been working so hard over the course of the last few months to learn about the inner workings of the Legislative Assembly. That hard work culminates today when they discuss two private members' motions, which have already been mentioned: the creation of a policy to address educational skill gaps through analysis and adjustment, and a proposed amendment to Section 228A of the Penal Code, which deals with child pornography. In preparation for this day, students have acquired or improved on the many skills that will help them throughout life, whether in public service or as active and interested citizens, such as public speaking, debate, presentation, research, and organizational skills. I believe young people need to understand the principles that underpin democracy and civil society, develop the skills to use that knowledge effectively, and be able to participate in the appropriate fora. But I also believe that the community as a whole benefits when young people become interested in and participate in the democratic process. When we see young people engage, such as those present today, stereotypes are broken down, and we begin to see youth as contributors, and as has been evidenced by the adults who put their energy into making today a success. It seems that adult levels of commitment and participation increase when given opportunities to work with young people. I was delighted to have the opportunity to explain to a couple of them what the role of the Premier is, and to have the opportunity to have them around. Engaged young people give us a fresh perspective and open the doors for us to work with other youth. They bring to the table enthusiasm, creativity, flexibility, and proactiveness. They also set a good example, encouraging other young people to become active community members who will be more likely to register to vote and do so. When young people are engaged, they have an opportunity to assume leadership roles, gain skills and experience, which in the long term can lead to their ability to make effective decisions in the future. And it gives them a chance to take ownership of their own lives and their own communities. So I applaud you young people here today, and the men and women who have worked to get you to this important juncture in your lives. As for today's business, the first motion will be moved by Ms. Ariana Stevenson, the 5th elected member for Bordentown, and will be seconded by Mr. Isaac Tibbetts, the 1st elected member for Cayman Bracken Little Cayman. Their proposed outcome is that government considers reviewing the percentage of work permit holders in specific professions and creates a policy so that local tertiary education courses, further qualifications such as doctorates and educational grants are concentrated to cover areas of employment where the percentage of work permit holders is high. As has been witnessed in this chamber over many, many years, they are undertaking a most daunting task, but I wish them well, and I eagerly await their debate. The second motion is brought by the Honorable Bianca Magoo, Leader of the Opposition, and the 1st elected member for Georgetown, and seconded by Ms. Caitlin Seymour, 3rd elected member for Bordentown. Their desired outcome is that government considers amending the specified sections of the Penal Code to introduce a more appropriate and effective incarceration period so that the perpetrator is legally obligated to undergo psychiatric analysis and regular support following various courses in liaison with those made available to convicted sex offenders, and that following the sentence, the perpetrator's probationary period should entail a curfew of 7 o'clock, monthly drug and alcohol testing, if necessary, as well as monthly mental support checkups for a specific period of time. Through today's exercise, we are assisting our young people to understand more fully political participation and parliamentary democracy through practical experience. A few of them are a little bit nervous and were engaged this morning in trying to find some salt, I understand, to put on the tops of their mouths so that their mouths don't become dry. But a little nerves when you're about to speak is not necessarily a bad thing. I thank the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and the CPA Cayman Islands branch for introducing youth parliaments many years ago. as well as the dedicated subcommittee members and youth parliamentarians. I appreciate your hard work and dedication. I point out once again that the Commonwealth mission is to empower, engage, and create values so that young women and men can contribute to the economic, social, and cultural advancement of their families and countries, as well as their own personal fulfillment. I look forward to the spirited debate that I know will ensue on the two private members' motions. And I now have the honor to declare the 10th Youth Parliament of the Cayman Islands officially open. Thank you for your attention.
This Honorable 10th Youth Parliament is now in session. I will ask the Honorable Premier to say prayers.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let us pray. Almighty God, from whom all wisdom and power are derived, we beseech thee so to direct and prosper the deliberations of this 10th Youth Parliament of the Cayman Islands Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, now assembled, that all things may be ordered upon the best and surest foundations for the glory of thy name and for the safety, honor, and welfare of the people of these islands. Bless our Sovereign Lady, Queen Elizabeth II, Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, Charles, Prince of Wales, and all the royal family. Give grace to all who exercise authority in our Commonwealth, that peace and happiness, truth and justice, religion and piety may be established among us. Especially we pray for the youth parliamentarians participating in this youth parliament, that they may be enabled faithfully to perform the responsible duties of their high office. All this we ask for thy great name's sake. Let us say the Lord's Prayer together. The Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make his face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon us and give us peace now and always. Amen.
Please be seated.
Reading of messages and announcements by the Speaker.
Before I proceed to the order of business, I crave the indulgence of this Honorable CPA, 10th Youth Parliament, to say a few words. It's a great honor for me to have been chosen as the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly for this 10th Youth Parliament in our beloved Isles Cayman. The theme for this year, 2017 Commonwealth is A Peace-Building Commonwealth. According to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, a peace-building Commonwealth means that we should focus on international peace and security, sustainable economic growth, development, and the rule of law, which are essential to the progress and prosperity of all. This message of the theme goes hand in hand in what we need to assure to create peace within our island and worldwide. This year, Youth Parliament has been a wonderful and beneficial experience for us young person who has joined this year's Parliament. And as I stand here today as the Speaker, I want to congratulate every one of the youth parliamentarians on a job well done. It takes dedication for you to be putting such effort into attending the sessions that we have had and finding the courage not to give up, but to move on and continue with this process. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be having such a wonderful audience here today, waiting to hear all of your speeches, and to see how much of a hard work you all have done. We may have had some ups and downs with starting out together as some complete strangers or knowing someone before, but we came together and create teamwork to achieve a youth parliament. Based on research, Youth Parliament is a youth organization consisting democratically elected members who are elected to represent the views of the young people in their area to government and service providers. Along with this, as I have observed everyone that are enrolled in this year's Youth Parliament, I've seen that the theme has been included in everything they've done. Within the Youth Parliament program, our young Caymanians can gain a lot of such experience. The program can instill such capabilities for our young people to use further on in the world of work and later on in life. The benefits of this program can give these young youth parliamentarians and future ones the skills of public speaking, teamwork, and legislative issues, knowing how one's country operates and what their decisions and actions can provide for their people. When knowing such skills, their minds are ready for what may hit them in the real world, knowing what to do in both the good and bad situations, and come to the best conclusions. It bears me to see our young people today who have the potential and opportunity to take charge of something and make the best out of it. The opportunity to set it aside for other things that won't benefit them at all. The following of friends won't take you anywhere depending on the company that you keep. Opportunities come and go. For you to know that certain opportunities come once in a lifetime, take charge of it and make it your own. Do everything that can make your dream possible as a young person. Make yourself and others proud. Thank you.
Other business, private member motion. Private member motion number 1 of 2017, creation of a policy to address educational skill gaps. Analysis and adjustment to be moved by the 5th elected member for Bontown.
I recognize the 5th elected member for Bontown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move private members' motion number 1 of 2017, creation of a policy to address educational skill gaps, analysis and adjustment, which reads as follows. Whereas there is currently an excess of 23,000 persons on work permits in the Cayman Islands out of a working population of about 46,000. And whereas high-position jobs are being offered to expatriates because of their advanced qualifications and education. And whereas a large percentage of these positions could be filled with capable and qualified Caymanians. And whereas there is limited local education courses offered to young Caymanians, and they are forced to further their education abroad to acquire the education to assist them in qualifying for positions in specific fields where there is a large percentage of expatriate workers. And whereas it is the government's responsibility to consider the relationship between educational needs of the young Caymanians and the types of businesses which require numerous work permits for their staff. Be it now therefore resolved that the government considers reviewing the percentage of work permit holders in specific professions and creating a policy whereby local tertiary education courses, further qualifications such as doctorates and educational grants are concentrated to cover areas of employment where the percentage of work permit holders is high. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Private member's motion number 1 of 2017 has been duly moved. Is there a seconder to the motion? I recognize the first elected member for Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to second private member's motion number 1 of 2017.
The motion has been duly moved and seconded. Does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as we enter the 21st century, it is clear that education is indeed a great investment that is required to hold occupations that are considered high-level qualifications, many of which expatriates hold in the Cayman Islands. Madam Speaker, tertiary education is facing unprecedented challenges. Madam Speaker, the better educated our people are, the better we will perform economically, but we don't have the resources needed to make this happen. Madam Speaker, work permits have risen by 4% over the last year. Why not bridge that gap by providing world-class education, which will greatly enhance their possibilities of becoming qualified in their respective fields, which would further allow them to secure high-position jobs. Then there would be less desire to increase the expatriate population. We seem to struggle with tertiary education. There are currently 2 colleges in the Cayman Islands, UCCI, University College of the Cayman Islands, and ICCI, International College of the Cayman Islands. Neither of these tertiary education institutions provide certain tertiary education courses that would bestow further qualifications, such as doctorates in areas in which there is a high percentage of expatriates holding these positions. Madam Speaker, this would be a great investment for the future because building an educated workforce benefits not only the current economy but also further generations of individuals by contributing to a more innovative, competitive, and productive workforce. Madam Speaker, higher education improves an individual's quality of life. College graduates have longer lifespans, better access to health care and health practices, greater economic stability and security, more prestigious employment and a greater job satisfaction, less dependency on the government assistance, greater knowledge of government, great community service and leadership, more volunteer work, and more self-confidence. Madam Speaker, for Caymanians to qualify for high position and money-making jobs, the government has to put in place advanced, postgraduate, professional courses for people to achieve doctorates, which can be aided provided educational grants, scholarships, etc. Madam Speaker, having tertiary courses available will help them to expand their knowledge and skills. Madam Speaker, we have a serious issue at hand, and it's not something that can be fixed overnight. If the government can direct funds to the correct areas to meet education needs, this includes providing Caymanians with structured courses once they have reached tertiary level. This will assist in raising the amount of Caymanians in high-paying jobs while lowering the amount of expatriates holding these occupations. Until then, measures are taken. Madam Speaker, how can we replace the expatriates if we don't educate and equip our population with the suggested qualifications? After the investigation, you may find that some institutions have a better understanding of the situation and prospects of tertiary institutions. The issue of quality relevance and funding required to meet the challenges for development needs to be considered. Special attention also needs to be given to the system as a whole, internally as well as externally. The key issues which also needs to be examined includes access and coverage of student population, equity, access, quality, and relevance of education management of institutions' national systems, lifelong education, innovations and future development plans. Greater access to tertiary education is needed, and it is a major ingredient if Cayman wants to achieve maximum development and growth. New strategies of a lifelong learning and a general access to tertiary education are regarded as urgent requirements and definitely needed now. Madam Speaker, the revolution of information and communication has generated a lot of opportunities for tertiary education institutions. By innovating new distance education teaching and learning techniques to increase access to tertiary education and training, and also to meet new training requirements. Madam Speaker, progress is happening. We are far ways off from completion, and it is a long road ahead, and the work permit figures tell us that. We need to continue to allocate money in the various areas to support people and their education needs. UNICEF, the United Nations International Children's Emergency Funding, quoted that education is not good for people, it's good for nations. Investing in education isn't just the right thing to do, it's smart economics. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the private member's motion of creating a policy to address educational skill gaps, analysis, and adjustment. The motion proposes that the government considers reviewing the percentage of work permit holders in specific professions and the creation of a policy whereby local tertiary education courses, further qualifications such as doctorates, and educational grants are concentrated to cover areas of employment where the percentage of work permit holders is high. Based on the Compendium of Statistics of the Cayman Islands, compiled by the Economics and Statistics Office, there was approximately 40,000 people employed in the Cayman Islands in 2015, over 18,000 of which were Caymanians and the remaining 21,000 non-Caymanians. The Caymanians' unemployment rate stood at 6.2%, while non-Caymanians had an unemployment rate of 2.5%. Almost 12,000 persons of our population are professionals, technicians, and associate professionals. 5,962 of the persons holding these occupations are expatriates. The lower remainder of 5,902 are Caymanians. These jobs are considered high-paying occupations that require tertiary education. In addition, senior official and management positions are held by over 1,000 non-Caymanians. That is 1,000 jobs that Caymanians could hold if they had the necessary qualifications, which the government could provide. According to the HSBC's 2016 report, the average cost of tertiary education in the areas identified as having a high number of expatriate workers can range on average from $12,000 to $20,000 for public colleges in the United States. For private colleges, the average cost ranges from $13,000 to $35,000. Madam Speaker, money should be spent on programs to ensure that Caymanians are educated and qualified to help them get the high-paying jobs. By doing this, money will be kept here in the Cayman Islands instead of being sent abroad by non-Caymanians to their families, which is the routine of many. Therefore, money will circulate through our economy, eventually landing back into the government's hands. Payment for the education would be direct. For scholarships to these local education systems, they'll be paid through a binding system which requires Caymanians to work here in our country. This would also contribute to our economy greatly. Providing local educational systems targeting degrees for professionals, technicians, and associate professionals, as well as giving the opportunity of holding senior official and management positions would provide a raise in the amount of Caymanians holding these positions. Having these programs available locally with scholarships available makes it extremely easy for a Caymanian to obtain these degrees. Therefore, the amount of Caymanians holding these positions should rise, as the amount of expatriates holding these positions lower. The issue of cost of these programs may be questioned, but as I stated above, investing in the future of our people will bring to us a bigger gain than ever hoped for. The government spends up to $20,000 for individual scholarships, whether to our local college as well as to international universities. Some of this money can be used to build a system of our own, which gives the training and education needed to pursue these jobs. If it is available locally, the need of monetary assistance for international colleges will lower. This would allow us to put money in different areas, such as the education system that the government is proposing. Madam Speaker, as Minister of Finance and Economic Development, my specific focus is on the economic development of our country in the long run, as well as the successfulness of our people. I strongly believe that the government should place economy emphasis on education courses in areas where there is a large number of work permit holders, that the country as a whole would prosper greatly. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the third elected member for West Bay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to speak on behalf of opposition on private members' motion number 1 of 2017, creation of a policy to address educational skill gaps, analysis, and adjustment. I would like to extend my support for this policy. However, due to lack of information provided, I am concerned for the many challenges this brings. Firstly, before I continue, I would like to state what fifth elected member said. There are currently 4 colleges. In reality, we have 4 colleges in Cayman: UCCI, ICCI, St. Matthew's Medical School, and Truman Bodin Law School. Also, what Minister of Finance and Economics said, that there are scholarships overseas, and also for Cayman to stay here, we have an option to go overseas or if we want to stay. May I continue? Firstly, there is no clear definition for the term working population given within this policy. Therefore, the challenges presented is not only who are the working population, but also what age group are we targeting, as this is a concern as well. A person ranging in ages 18 to 65 who are physically able to work or not working. And there are not only young people who would like to further their education by going into college, but also middle-aged persons who would like to change their career. Taken from Immigration Law 2015 revision, the definition of a Caymanian is a person who possesses Cayman status under the Repeal Immigration Law 2003 revision, or any earlier law providing for the same or similar right. In my opinion, there are expatriates who have working permits and later over the years apply for Cayman status. The Caymanian Status and Permanent Residency Board have the responsibility for the process determining and granting for applications for the right to be a Caymanian. So how does this affect the analysis of expatriate versus Caymanian? If, for example, there are X amount of people holding a work permit in a certain profession, but half of them end up staying long enough to apply for status. Further challenges arise when government directs that this policy should only target high-position jobs, but not being specifying the fields that this position falls into. I would say we must be careful how we trudge down this path. In the past, independent Northside MLA Ezra Millard said work permits are far too easy to get. The protection needs to be in immigration legislation for the work permits. What we need is a proper human resources authority, and those are the people that give you the right to bring someone in, and the immigration lets them cross the border. Also, Minister of Finance in the past, Mr. Marco Archer said, what we're seeing is a decline of the unemployment rate for Caymanians and increase the unemployment rate for non-Caymanians. With all that being said, I noticed in the motion that the proposal said that the government considers reviewing the percentage of work permit holders in specific divisiveness. Madam Speaker, I would like to ask the question, do we know that Caymanians have an interest in the unspecified fields? If there's no studies that there have been carried out to show their support, how can we jump to the conclusion that they would like to go into professional industry? And the government suggested that we solely focus on what government wants instead of what the populace want. Cayman Islands is a democratic society where we have the free will to choose and the public has the final to say. Madam Speaker, how can we allow our government to limit our youth to careers they don't want to generally have? Notwithstanding these challenges, I am in agreement that our tertiary level institution offer a limited variety of programs in associate, bachelor's, and master's level, as well professional education of workforce training. How are we preparing our secondary students in a tertiary education while John Gray High School planned in 2008 and started in March 2012, 4 years to start, with a $54.4 million budget, which has not been completed but yet in 2017, an additional $7.9 million, which left the building half built when the money ran out. Government has built the gymnasium before school classes, signifying to me that government cares more on the image and athletes more than they care about academics. Government has promoting sports and athletes, but yet we barely hear anything for academics. Why we not spend money on what is important like school supplies, books, and things as school would need in order to function our education? Madam Speaker, we should prepare our youth to go into tertiary. Instead, we should prepare our youth for tertiary instead of just remaining on when they graduate, but prepare them for tertiary level. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the first elected member for Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, today I will be addressing a topic that is indeed dear to the hearts and lives of my fellow Caymanians. Madam Speaker, expatriates take up a majority of the workforce. According to the Economic Statistics Office, as of spring 2016, there are more than 22,000 valid work permits, compared to less than 20,000 Caymanians in the workforce. Now, Madam Speaker, I can understand a portion of our population needing to be imported, but I cannot agree with more than half of our workforce being taken up by work permits. The same thing is happening repeatedly, where our young Caymanians are being qualified only to the associate degree level, which does not allow them to obtain high position jobs. We are suggesting that a policy is created to address these educational skill gaps. Madam Speaker, the case to be presented by myself is no easy task, and I must ask one question. Madam Speaker, when someone repeats the same action time and time again, but expects a different result, what is that called? Madam Speaker, that is defined as insanity. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, this is exactly what we do every time a position becomes available. We see an advertisement that is custom made for a particular person. We ask our Caymanians to apply. The end result is, of course, that Cayman does not meet the requirements of the job. The Cayman Islands' current education system is still struggling after many years of adjustment, and the Caymanian population as a whole is paying for it. Time and time again, Caymanians are passed up because they don't have qualifications for the jobs, and therefore aren't getting the positions they deserve. Madam Speaker, doing the same thing over and over doesn't put food on the table or pay the mortgage. Madam Speaker, I have had conversations with too many Caymanians who have been held back by this dilemma. Madam Speaker, in order for my fellow Caymanians to be treated equally, I beg this honorable House to look at a mandate for education. Madam Speaker, I propose that today we make it mandatory for all Caymanians to be properly equipped for the workforce by requiring post-secondary qualifications in order to make the Cayman Islands better. Madam Speaker, not everyone is college material, but indeed everyone has a role to play. Our neighbors to the north, Cuba, require college-level education for all of its citizens. Madam Speaker, further to this, our friends from the Philippines also arrive here with tertiary-level qualifications. The Caymanian people are not ignorant, and with this motion, the people of the Cayman Islands will be more likely to succeed. Our own people will be duly qualified for top position jobs in their own country. Madam Speaker, this is a win-win situation. We guarantee our people top position jobs and the ability to compete in a global job market. I beg this honorable House to consider the essential fact that our Caymanian people must be educated in order to compete in their own home job market. Madam Speaker, the cost of such an endeavor is indeed high. I would be foolish to think otherwise, although the great number of expatriates coming in does increase the money in government coffers. Madam Speaker, the cost of such an endeavor is indeed high. I would be foolish to think otherwise. Although the great number of expatriates coming in does increase the money in government coffers, it would be still prove counterproductive as majority of expatriates send their money back to their country of origin. Madam Speaker, the bottom line is this. When Caymanians occupy jobs, their money stays here to build the economy. The opposition will argue that the cost of such an endeavor is too much. But Madam Speaker, if we think education is expensive, try ignorance. I thank you for the opportunity, Madam Speaker, to address this motion and trust that we will indeed see benefits for our Caymanian people. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the Honorable Minister of Education and Employment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would first like to start my contribution to the private member motion number 1 by asking the question, what is the purpose of education? If I may use a quote from Nelson Mandela, who said, "Education is the single most civil rights issue that we face today, and education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world." Madam Speaker, this is what this motion is trying to do today. We are trying to change the face of employment within the Cayman Islands. The motion is seeking to take a situation which has developed because in the past there were not enough Caymanians educated and qualified to take on certain positions as they became available in our community. Today, however, that is not the case. There are Caymanians with the highest education, including masters and doctorates, but still, the issue of Caymanians not being able to obtain certain high positions within companies and firms still exists, because as so often said, they either don't have the qualifications or the level of experience. This is where having a good level of experience and qualifications are very important. Having a certain level of experience can help young Caymanians who are and will be seeking jobs in the future to be more successful in their employment. Madam Speaker, as Minister of Education, it is my responsibility to consider how education is going to impact the economy and its development as a whole. Education benefits the society and is very crucial for the development of our economy, as it will help to increase economic growth, reduce poverty, reduce crimes, increase employment, and also help individuals to earn higher income within their homes, which will therefore improve the quality of life and the standard of living within our economy. Madam Speaker, education not only benefits the individual, but in every sense is one of the fundamental factors of economic development. Education raises productivity within communities and people and promotes entrepreneurship and technological advances within our economy. In addition, education plays a very crucial role in securing economic development, growth, social progress, and better income distribution. Madam Speaker, every year the government devotes an increasingly large share of its budget to the development of the education sector. The reason for such an increase in government investment in education lies to the belief that education has a direct impact on the economy, the economic growth and development of the country. The reason for such certainty is because education within developing countries is regarded as a powerful instrument and has also proven to determine and predict economic development, economic income, poverty, crimes, and remove social and income inequalities, improve the standard of living and quality of lives within our economy. Education is also said to reinforce deliberation within a country. Madam Speaker, higher education has a positive impact on the growth of individuals as it enriches their understanding and the quality of their lives, which leads to broad social benefits to society. Higher education also has a direct impact on the economy and its development. What we must remember is that education is considered as a tool for economic advancement of any country. The enrollment of students in higher education means more skilled labor, which in turn leads to a positive impact on the gross domestic product. But in order to get students to enroll in higher education, the government must make an effort to provide the facilities and or the financial support to assist young Caymanians with the necessary assistance they need. We must recognize the fact that education and the economy are linked in various ways. Madam Speaker, the education within the Cayman Islands continues to develop every year, which is great. However, in its eagerness to improve the economic situation, the government must not forget the education of its young people, as education is regarded as a powerful instrument for economic advancement. Imagine what Cayman would be like if all Caymanians who wanted to have a bachelor's, a master's, and a doctorate was able to do so. Imagine the amount of wealth and prosperity within our economy and our Caymanians. It is government's responsibility to ensure that young Caymanians are equipped and prepared with the necessary education, skills, and qualifications in order to take over the jobs which are rightfully theirs. In so doing, to ensure that the workforce of the Cayman Islands is in the capable hands of the Caymanians. Caymanians who will make sure that this economy we call home prosper for the next generation. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, I have to emphasize the fact that we cannot have a thriving economy which benefits others and not our own Caymanians. The more the Caymanian people prosper, the more the country will prosper. And the way to ensure this is to ensure that each and every Caymanian are educated and qualified to take over high-end jobs of this country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the 6th elected member for Georgetown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I'll be speaking on Motion 1, how an advanced education affects the economy. Though we are already aware of the fact that education contributes greatly toward our lives and how we live and communicate with one another, you find a few who will most definitely think that it's completely fine to go through life without the appropriate amount of knowledge required to become a successful human being and having an advanced education in general. As Amartya Sen, a great man, once said, poverty is not just a lack of money. It is not having the capability to realize one's full potential as a human being. And this quote reflects the purpose of my message significantly. With that being said, I'll be providing qualitative and quantitative analysis that would support the positive effects of how an advanced education affects the economy. Every country's goal is to achieve financial stability, growth of its economy, and higher living standards. If a good education system is implemented, these goals could all be seen through and achieved. But can education really increase a country's development or growth? Throughout the years, from 1960 straight through to 2010, statistics based on the comparison of South Korea and America's GDP rate have been recorded and tabulated. Now it can be seen that the country with the higher GDP rate so happens to be South Korea. What is the meaning of GDP is the question that you're more than likely asking at this moment. The definition of a country's GDP is the gross domestic product. This associates with the country by determining its progress and the amount of production that occurs in the economy of the country. The money gained from the country's high GDP can also go toward the educational development of the country. When I saw the data, I questioned myself and asked why there was a numerical difference between the two countries and why one country's GDP rate was higher than the next. After browsing and reading, I had found that the cause for this difference in the GDP rates was the country's rate of education. In the most recent rankings for the world's educational systems, South Korea ranked first, whilst America ranked 14th. A high GDP rate implies that more citizens in the country are attending colleges and schools, and that higher living standards are achieved, which was one of the goals previously mentioned that are generally aspired by countries to achieve. A study supported by the South African Department of Higher Education and Training was done on the fact that higher education most definitely increases the country's income. Seeing as though education advances our brains and supplies it with knowledge and skills, this would lead to the country's higher income by increasing the country's employment, rather than leaving the country with a high percentage of unemployment. With the increased rates of educated citizens, more job qualifications will be met, and this is how the rate of unemployment will decrease, and more income will be gained by the country, which causes economic development and growth to occur. Poverty is a worldwide problem, in which many solutions aren't available. It's usually pushed aside on the pending solutions list in order for space to be provided for other matters that are worth the country's consumption of time and energy. But if education is truly the key to success and well-being, can't it be used to eliminate this never-ending problem? If more of the country's income is put toward the education sector of the country, as mentioned previously, it can become easier for the children to have easy access to education, and they will be more than likely encouraged to continue and consider completing higher levels of the process. If more time and money is put into this section of the country, generation after generation will grow and become better and better, and eventually the elimination of poverty will be complete. Therefore, I have come to the conclusion that education is the key to most of our problems that can't seem to be unlocked. If more money is put toward Cayman's educational sector, it will change the economy for better rather than changing it for worse. With that being said, I completely agree with the motion that advanced education can affect the economy positively. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the fourth elected member for Bodden Town.
Madam Speaker, I agree with the idea that expanding the tertiary education system to include more courses dedicated to provide more opportunities to students is a good idea. However, I believe that the motion which was presented is too selective in only focusing on setting courses for students to work in the professional industry, and ignoring those who may not want to work in such fields, which is why I choose to oppose this motion. Its impact would only affect a small subset of Caymanians if it's only dedicated towards degrees such as doctorates and educational grants. The government should also consider expanding the tertiary education system into another field, such as the liberal arts, in addition to the courses dedicated for doctorates and educational grants, in order to increase the number of opportunities for Caymanian students, instead of using the education system for the sole purpose of decreasing the number of expats within specific fields. I believe the liberal arts should be expanded along with the doctors and such, because there is a vast number of different opportunities and different majors Caymanians could be educated in and can further enlighten the public to the many opportunities that exist outside of the professional industry. Now, Madam Speaker, as a Caymanian, I can recall many people around me who are not sure of a specific job they want to do. However, they know a specific field that they enjoy studying. I think as the government, they should provide opportunities for these persons. A liberal arts degree would allow Caymanians who aren't sure of what exact position or exact job they want to work in to be able to receive a degree in a major that they would appreciate studying, such as communication and sociology, in order to be more competitive when applying for a job. Now, the liberal arts are defined as the academic course of instruction at a college intended to provide general knowledge and comprising of the arts, humanities, natural sciences, and social sciences, as opposed to professional or technical subjects. A specialized institution that would be dedicated to a liberal arts instruction could provide capable and qualified Caymanians that can work in a large variety of fields. Liberal arts can provide a student with advantages in areas of critical and analytical thinking, adaptability to change, written and oral skills. What are the benefits to Caymanians who can receive a degree in such fields? Since these graduates are not bonded to a single field, they can work in various jobs and positions. Possibilities ranging from business to communications, entertainment, public policy, and education. Now, a survey done by the American Association of Colleges and Universities shows that 93% of employers say that it's more important for students or potential hires to possess good critical and communication skills rather than having a major in a specific field. Now, as the government, shouldn't it be your responsibility to encourage Caymanians to have skills such as these? And Madam Speaker, I would also like the government to consider expanding the tertiary system to include degrees in STEM fields. Firstly, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And according to the U.S. Department of Education, the jobs in STEM are projected to have some of the biggest increase in the near future. And STEM careers are some of the most rewarding jobs. It is also evident that there is great interest among young Caymanians for STEM-based careers. Last year, 2016, there was a STEM conference at UCCI, which had many young Caymanian students attend, and they presented science projects. And you could see the brilliance that these students had possessed. And just last Saturday, there was a competition known as Sea Perch, which many young Caymanians took part in, where they had to build mini submarines, and they displayed their engineering skills. My point is that many young Caymanians already display brilliance and interest in these fields, so it should be in our best interest to promote these passions and provide resources to encourage Caymanians to acquire degrees in STEM fields. Now, a member said that education plays a great role in the economy, which is true. The best, most powerful countries have the greatest institutions. But with greatest institutions, we should also consider focusing on a broad range of options and opportunities. In summary, the motion that was presented may be a viable option in reducing the demand for expats in the professional industry and encouraging more Caymanians to complete their studies on island. However, the government should not consider just expanding the tertiary education system as a means of combating the excess number of expatriates in Cayman's professional fields, but also as a means of providing wider opportunities to include Caymanians who can adapt, be flexible, and quantify their skills in Cayman and in the larger working world. I would strongly recommend that the motion be amended to take into account the issues raised. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before I begin, I would just like to address some of the points that the fourth elected member for Bodden Town said during his address. He mentioned that our motion is too selective and only applies to doctorates and educational grants, which is not exactly true. He seems to have misinterpreted our motion just slightly. Our motion is not just for doctorates and scholarships. It applies to any valid tertiary education that can be approved by a relevant council or ministry here in Cayman, and it applies to bachelor's, master's, doctorates, and relevant studies. Now, moving on to my speech. The current motion, the motion would have the dual effect of slowly reducing the dependency of the island on expatriate workers, but it should be noted that this is not the primary purpose. Expatriates are a large and productive percentage of the island's workforce, and their importance cannot be understated. This motion will simply allow for the slow but steady transition from complete dependency of expatriates to a sustainable reliance on the readily available indigenous population. Now, with that out of the way, Madam Speaker, I wish to begin my points by acknowledging that although the Cayman Islands are a small territory with a relatively small population, to most countries, and is more comparable to towns and small cities, it is still the responsibility of the government to ensure that at every turn, the people of the Cayman Islands have every possible opportunity to advance themselves, and that those opportunities are available to not only elsewhere with educational grants, but here at home. Students need to have every possible opportunity to succeed from the start. While that includes major education reform, that is for a separate debate. Madam Speaker, we cannot sit and ignore the state of our affairs as they currently stand. We cannot play politics with the education of the future of our islands. Our small population will need to dictate the future that benefits all inhabitants, Caymanian or otherwise. There was an article recently in CNS, Cayman News Service, entitled "Skill Gap Remains Challenges for Bosses." It states clearly that the general belief in the business community on the island is that educational standards in the government schools are poor, and that is why they can't find the talent they need. It also stated that many students leave school without the necessary skills or drive for certain common job roles. These are not arbitrary quotes and claims made by anonymous sources and government dissenters. These are the thoughts and opinions of Mr. Kyle Broadhurst made publicly during his speech at the annual general meeting of the Chamber of Commerce, as he took up the leading role of the business advocacy group. Anyone who has been through the current government system can attest to the fact that these are harsh truths and that these are affecting students on the islands today. Not every student has the same experience, but at the same time, not every student is able to take advantage of the opportunities that are provided in the current system. According to Mr. Johan Maxim, a former president of the Chamber of Commerce, there is a stigma attached to local educations by businesses on the island, along with overseas companies and corporations. For example, Truman Bodden Law School is seen as subpar to other tertiary education institutions that offer educations in the legal services. Mr. Maxim also stated, the students of government-associated tertiary education are being done disservice due to the lack of resources, facilities, equipment, and etc. From these statements, I wish to stress the necessity of this motion to move the islands into a position where we can compete with other jurisdictions, or at the very least, where tertiary educations provided here aren't looked down upon by local businesses and potential employers. The students of our tertiary institutions need to be offered and afforded the highest standard of education possible, no matter the cost of advancement. Education is an investment that cannot be denied due to advanced costs. As the government, it is our solemn duty to provide the very best in services for our people. Our people depend on us, Madam Speaker, to provide the very best possible opportunities here at home. Their futures depend on their ability to compete on an international level with others that may have advanced qualifications and educations. Their future, I said that. In closing, I would just like to say the furtherance of our people and the advancement of their education is not something that we can allow to slip between the cracks and be subject to divisive party politics. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the 4th elected member for West Bay.
Madam Speaker, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I raise to speak on behalf of opposition with the agreement of the private member Motion 1 of 2017. Madam Speaker, my colleagues of the Minister of Education engaged the plan to engage the changement of performance of our Caymanians. As we strive to develop a better education system, our country, each year of the Minister of Education, Employment, of Education and the Gender of Affairs, the Minister of the Department of Education Service carries out a preview of the Cayman Island public education system. Madam Speaker, the following words, may I read, please? Listen very carefully what the minister wants to achieve. Additionally, we have been asked to undertake the comparison of the system relates that the system used in other countries and to provide a well-performing recommendation as to how the minister and the Department of Education Service and to perform the assets of public education system in order to achieve appropriate educational outcomes. As I read that, Madam Speaker, I was thinking, Cayman needs to be looking to other country education to be better? No. As I follow read, it has been held and to sponsored by KPMG, a global center of excellence in education. We have been held to bring together a strong group of subject matter experts and a high expertise of professionals from around the world to help our members to firm carry out the expertise previews. Madam Speaker, these are the questions that comes in my mind. Where are the previews? Where are the group of objects with the high expertise? And where is the percentage of the average of students achieved in school? These are the questions we young Caymanians are asking.
We are the ones who will suffer. We are the ones who deserve the rule of our country in the best way. Let's all take a moment to reflect. For the past few years, the Board of Education came up with the mean benchmark, meaning a 5+ level 2 qualification, including English and maths. Allow me, Madam Speaker, performance through the year. 18.1 in 2011 to 25.6 in 2013 and 13.7 in 2014. I believe that young Caymanians can do better than this. In words of Philippines 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Madam Speaker, you may ask why I use the Bible verse. Well, as you know, Cayman is a part of our religious, and we believe in the word of the Lord. Madam Speaker, why to wait for so many years to realize that we have a problem? Why to wait for the problem to become worse? No one likes to be placed blame. No one likes to be pointed out. But if the governor does not come or act soon, the people will continue waiting for the governor to come up with a plan. We will all suffer. We can't judge one another. Madam Speaker, the question that we all asking is, what's the plan for our future Cayman Islands? We are the ones that will suffer. We will be the ones who end up dealing with the situation if we don't start from now. Madam Speaker.
Sorry, member. I recognize the Honorable Mayor.
I'm sorry. The the fourth elected member from West Bay just mentioned the governor coming up with the plan. I'd just like to understand what she means.
Qualification, please. What I meant in which one?
I recognize the Honorable Deputy Premier.
Yes, for the fourth elected member of West Bay, just clarification on what she meant by the governor is what the Premier is asking.
I meant government, not governor.
Continue, member.
Madam Speaker, my honorable colleagues want to expand and give more opportunity to the young Caymanians in a further education board, to acquire and assist them in a qualification position in the Pacific areas, where there's a large percentage of aspirate workers. Words of James Manchin said these quotes, "Knowledge will not forever govern ignorance, and the people who mean to their own governors must around themselves in the portal which the knowledge gives." Madam Speaker, this means that you cannot give someone something if they never worked for it. In order for them to earn the job, they will need to work some interest. I am a proud Honduran and Caymanian, and do my best to make this country proud, and also for myself. I will make the point that Caymanians is indicated when it comes to finish high school. The ones who do finish their studies struggles to have a high quality jobs because of the low environmental education system that the Cayman Islands offer. Let me also point out that non-Caymanian likes to work in a low-level job. That's when the expat comes and take over jobs. In other countries, they got the ability to sponsor and to cover the entire education department. Madam Speaker, Cayman Island most cover is the tourism. You may ask why. It's because that's where most of the money comes from. But Madam Speaker.
Member, your time is up.
Sorry?
Your time is up.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the Honorable Minister of Community Affairs and Youth and Sports. Oh, sorry. The Honorable Deputy Governor.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, as the Deputy Governor, I rise in support of organized education reform, allowing for economic growth to save money in the Cayman Islands. Let me begin with a quote from Malcolm X, who expressed the view that education is our passport to the future. Tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. Since education critically impacts the future success and competitiveness of our youth, it is incumbent upon us to ensure that our youth are properly and adequately prepared for the global marketplace and for global competitiveness. Events such as globalization and the ever-increasing pace of technological advances makes the need for educational reform mandatory, so that our schools can respond more effectively to the demands placed on school leavers. According to RAND.org, education reform is the name given to the goal of changing public education, from teaching methodologies to administrative processes. Historically, reforms have taken different forms, largely attributed to the attitudes, motivations, and differences among reformers. My discourse today will focus on the purpose and reasons for organized education reform, the benefits of organized education reform, and addressing the question of whether organized education reform will save the government money. The purpose of education reform is firstly to deliver a fair and more equitable society in which opportunity is shared more widely, and secondly to secure the highest standards of education for all young people in the Cayman Islands, regardless of their social or economic background. Reform may include reducing class sizes, reforming the curriculum, encouraging surface knowledge, facts, or encouraging deeper thinking skills, more testing or changing the school buildings and their configurations, open spaces. Increased focus on early childhood, increased use of labeling such as autism, ADHD, holding students back versus social promotion according to age group, with perhaps in-class remediation, school autonomy, and teacher training and education. There are many reasons which drive the need for educational reform. Among these is the problem of disengaged.
I recognize the Honorable Deputy Leader of Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to call on a point of order and ask the honourable member why she decided to include early childhood development when the proposal is focused on tertiary education.
Because I chose to include them because there's a lot of people that are disabled or have ADHD or stuff like that that are in high school and that need the extra help, if that answers your question.
Recognize the Honorable Deputy Leader of Opposition.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, again, to call on a point of order, I would like to again ask the member, as I specifically stated in how she stated early childhood development and how that had to relate to tertiary education, not so much as she has talked about high school, which is secondary. My question had to pertain to why she included early childhood development instead of, well, as she did state, high school, but that was not the point of my question.
The government would like to tell the opposition to do their own research. May I continue?
Continue, member.
There are many reasons which drive the need for educational reform. Among these is the problem of disengaged students, leading to an increase in high school dropout rates, indecencies of antisocial behavior, petty crimes, and drug abuse, among the other related social ills. These students leave school without any skills or competencies and can potentially be a burden on society. Another reason for the education reform is to ensure that the curriculum and curriculum goals reflect the changes and trends occurring within our society. The educational system must keep pace with the societal changes and international best practice in order to provide adequate training for school leavers. Of note is the 2015 report produced by KPMG, which speaks to the low level of literacy and numeracy associated with students exiting from the public system. They assess it as a significant issue. The CATs, which is the Cognitive Assessment Test, indicate that 70% of learners should be achieving at level 4 in reading, writing, and math, but it is shown that most Key Stage 2 students fall significantly below the benchmark. The attainment for literacy was 63%, while numeracy was 47%. This suggests that even as students are leaving primary school level, transitioning into secondary level, literacy and numeracy rates fall below the international benchmarks. Madam Speaker, this issue hinders schools in the Cayman Islands from producing more qualified young people. Not only does it affect how the youth of the Cayman Islands learn, but this also affects the choices they make and their ability to access the curriculum. The picture is similar at the Key Stage 4 level. The KPMG report also drew attention to the fact that 32% of students in the Cayman Islands attained 5 or more level 2 qualifications, compared to 53% of the UK students attaining 5 or more level 2 qualifications. This suggests that secondary level kids are also falling below what is internationally expected, which isn't good for the Cayman Islands as it impacts our future competitiveness. These are some of the main reasons why there is a need for educational reform in the Cayman Islands. Further, this speaks to the school leavers' ability to find gainful employment and to earn a livable wage. Madam Speaker, I would like to highlight some of the benefits of serious organized education reform. For example, it focuses the education system on understandable, objective, measurable, and well-defined goals to enable schools to work smarter and more productively. Education reform focusing on school improvement is student-centric. It provides...
Member, you have 1 minute left.
Okay. It provides a system where student learning and engagement is valued, and that conditions are created where all students can achieve their full potential and be provided with the competencies and confidence that will allow them to be competitive in a global marketplace. In closing, I would like to say that reform policies should focus on providing quality education for all children, youth, and adults, irrespective of their academic potential. A better quality education increases average earnings and productivity and reduces the likelihood of social problems that in turn are harmful for economic development. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the Honorable Minister of Community Affairs.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, today I speak about a topic which we all believe should be dealt with and plays a huge part in our life today. Work permits take up the preponderance of the workforce. It is understandable that at least half of our community are expatriates. Therefore, we realize there would be a decrease in revenue from work permit fees. By decreasing the amount of work permit fees, it is likely that we would not have enough extra money for the development of education. However, we need to balance that against the Caymanian workers. Madam Speaker, the amount of work permits given out to expatriates has raised by 4% over the last year, with an average unemployment rate of 3.9% according to the Cayman Islands Statistics website. As a result, we suggest that tertiary schools teach more than the basic standard school subjects. Madam Speaker, it is wrong that every time a job is available and a Caymanian tries to apply, we are once again told we are underqualified, don't meet the standards, no experience, or the jobs are no longer available. Madam Speaker, we must ask ourselves one question. Why do we bring in expatriates when we have capable Caymanians who can do the same thing? With a bit of extra training and motivation, we can ensure that our Caymanians will be qualified and skillful enough to meet those demanding job standards. Again and again, we have been categorized as being lazy people who don't want to work. Really, Madam Speaker? What has our island come to? It's simply that our fellow Caymanians have not been given the opportunity to prove themselves. Madam Speaker, we strongly believe that education is the key to success. Therefore, we need to ensure that the schools have the necessities, programs, and equipment needed for every student to be successful. That when they are placed into a working environment, they have the skills needed to strive. Madam Speaker, the cost of living in our country today has increased outrageously, and our own Caymanians are struggling to survive. How can Caymanians still be able to keep a roof over their head and pay their bills with such little salary or no job at all? Madam Speaker, there's a saying, robbing Peter to pay Paul. People have to choose whether or not to put food on the table or to pay their bills, due to living from paycheck to paycheck. With better education, we could get better jobs to be able to live a successful life with less stress or no stress at all. With passing this motion, our Caymanian people are more likely to succeed. In our community today, our culture is barely recognized. Sometimes less diversity can be a good thing, but as a community, I suggest we all encourage students in tertiary schools and university graduates to broaden their thoughts on what jobs they may want to go into. There are several jobs which we tend to stray away from. Therefore, we find a lot of expats working in these positions, like teachers, lawyers, accountants, and even in the medical field. With this being said, I encourage our tertiary students and school graduates to consider the thought of working in areas where work permit holders are high. All in all, Madam Speaker, these are things that all members of the House should want for their country. Madam Speaker, we have to remember that we are here by the people, for the people, and it is in their best interest that we are supposed to act. I trust that the opposition will consent to this motion so that the government can do what's right to make Cayman better again, and our fellow Caymanians are not left behind. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the Honorable Deputy Leader of Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to offer my contribution to the private member motion number 1 of 2017. The motion is asking for a policy to be created whereby local tertiary education courses and further qualifications such as doctorates and education grants are concentrated to cover areas of employment where the percentage of work permit holders are high. I would like to oppose this motion since this motion only seeks to benefit a very small subset of Caymanians. Seemingly, this proposal has been written to try and include only those in the professional industry, as evidenced by the government listing doctorates. What the government seems to support are those that seek a degree in the Cayman Islands that are not given in any sort of actual specified area of employment. I must ask the government what professions they specifically seek to try and expand upon in their proposal. Government says they're looking at high expat holding professions, but what professions are they specifically? The notion that increasing Caymanians in expat-dominated fields through this very vague proposal is a ridiculous fantasy that should not be given any sort of legitimization, I say. How is it that the government is actually seeking to implement this policy? They offer no real goal and only offer old platitudes disguised as a policy proposal. I say the opposition has had to try and figure out what the government even meant in their own proposal. Yes, they said that they want to expand the tertiary education to accommodate industries that are dominated by expats. But we should like to remind the government that the largest industry that is actually dominated by expats are in fact elementary occupations and service and sales workers. Combined, Madam Speaker, they make up 10,800 total expatriates, which I should tell the government is almost half of the entire population of expatriates living in the Cayman Islands. And I'm assured that the government does not seek to expand tertiary education systems to apply towards people becoming waiters, waiters, cleaners, or even, as I have listed, nannies. And as such, we believe that this proposal was only written to keep those in the professional industry in mind and not any other sort of industry. What ultimately is the biggest flaw of this proposal is that it ultimately serves to exclude Caymanians.
Sorry, member. I recognize the first elected member for Cayman.
Point of clarification, where did you get your statistics from?
I got the statistics straight from the immigration department.
Continue.
Thank you. So, as I say, this proposal only serves to exclude Caymanians from what the government wants, not from what...
Sorry, member. Does the Honorable Deputy Leader of Opposition give way to the Honorable Minister of Education, Employment, and Gender Affairs?
No. No, Madam Speaker.
Please be seated. Continue, member. Continue.
Oh. So as I've been saying, I'm saying that this proposal is ultimately written by the government to exclude those that they do not seem to be worthy. Professions such as artists, engineers, teachers, and
Point of clarification, please. When you said that the government is excluding, I believe, the other, just what you said just now. Yeah. I'd just like to clarify that the government did not specifically say we're excluding other students regarding tertiary education, but we're giving an example regarding to your statistical information in the Cayman Islands. So thank you.
I would like to begin by saying that I listed those as being excluded since those are traditionally not high-paying jobs, which the government has specifically stated was what they were looking for in their proposal, was specifically high-paying jobs. And infamously, the profession of being a teacher is not a high-paying job, and as such would be excluded from such a policy. May I continue?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. As the fourth elected member of West Bay has stated, as statistics made public by the Immigration Department has shown, only about 550 expatriates hold a work permit whilst also holding a job in the entire medical industry in the Cayman Islands. This is significantly different from those who hold a work permit in the teaching profession, for instance.
I recognize the Honorable Premier.
Madam Speaker, I would just like to ask the Deputy Leader of the Opposition where in our motion he sees the words high-paying jobs, because in the current copy that I have, I do not see it.
Continue, member.
I want to stress that the government did stress in their own proposal. They said, and whereas high-position jobs are being offered to expatriates because of their advanced qualifications and education,
I would just like to inform the Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Honorable Premier, please be seated. Continue, member.
As I was saying, is that the government in their own proposal stated that And whereas high position jobs are being offered to expatriates because of their advanced qualifications and education, that in their own language, that the proposal has been written to specifically accommodate those in the professional industry. And as such, we do see that the government is excluding those not in these high-paying professions. Else, they wouldn't have included it in their own proposal. As I may.
Continue.
Thank you. So, as I was, that there are 550 total expatriates working in the medical industry entirely in the Cayman Islands. This is a significantly drastic number between those who work in the teaching profession, where that number is a whopping.
Does the Honorable Deputy Leader of Position give way to the first elected member of Cayman Brac and Little Cayman?
No.
Please be seated.
So as I was saying, that the number of balloons in the teaching profession up to a whopping 809. Therefore, the question must be raised as to whether the implementation of this policy is really even worth it if the policy only impacts such a small range of Caymanians. I must also ask, how does the government even
Point of clarification. Where you stated statistics on the health, but you didn't state where you got it from.
Madam Speaker, I must reiterate that I did state where I got the information from. I did get it from the Immigration Department, as I stated in the beginning of my start of the speech.
Continue, member.
Thank you. So I must say, how does the government actually seek to even expand the system? Is it by increasing the amount of courses offered at UCCI, for instance? By creating specialized schooling for teaching, I say? Because I must remind the government that if they seek to expand the teaching profession, for instance, that would have to require opening specialized schooling entirely. And if the market for Caymanians wanting to become teachers is really low, the chance of creating a financially sound specialized schooling system would be slim.
Does the Honorable Leader of Opposition speak, member?
You said in our motion that we said that it's specifically for it, but we said that they are offered to expatriates because of their advanced qualifications. Thus, we said we would specify in these qualifications for college so that we would open the opportunities for them to get the jobs, not for them to only get the jobs.
Madam Speaker, I must say that if the government did not wish to include those in the high position jobs as the focal point of their argument, I have no clue as to why they would include it in their own proposal then. I must say, it's because that unless the government seeks to also expand the tertiary education system to expand those, as I have listed previous, in the elementary occupations and service sales workers, which make up, I should say again, half of the total expatriate population in the Cayman Islands, then fine by me, but that the chances of actually offering the tertiary education system to accommodate specialized schooling for people who want to become nannies, nannies, waiters, and cleaners is frankly not at all what this government has been trying to propose or what any other member of government has even stated in their own speeches.
Point of clarification, Madam Speaker, we said high position, not high paying.
Continue, member.
May I please hear what the member had to say?
We said high position, not high paying.
I must ask, fundamentally, what is the difference between the two? High position jobs are, of course, things such as CEOs, businesses, bankers, traders, let me finish, and also...
Member, please be seated.
As I was saying, the government has stated high positions such as bankers, traders, CEOs would be another example, yet I would be hard-pressed to find a high-position job that is not also high-paying, as the two are inextricably linked with each other.
Point of clarification.
Let me finish, please.
Please be seated. No, it's not finished.
So as such, I would like to say that as the government keeps on talking about how it's high-position jobs that are not high-paying, I must stress that the two are so inextricably linked that I see no reason to try and argue the difference between the two.
Continue, member.
Thank you. So as the third elected member for West Bay also raised the concern about regarding how the government would actually financially even fund such a proposal. As
Does the Honorable Leader of Opposition give way to the Premier?
no.
Continue, member.
The government has, as my colleague, the third elected member of West Bay has stated, the government has spent upwards of $55.4 million on a new John Gray campus alone since its start in 2008, plus an additional $7.9 million allocated to it in the year 2017. So, but what has to show for it? Is it a new campus that lots of new Caymanians can go to? No. What's all that money that's been wasted has spent is just the opening of a new gym, which, if I'm honest, is not even worth the whopping $60 million plus event investment that's been made. Now. Yeah.
Point of clarification, please, Madam Speaker. The government would like to know if it is a fact or an opinion that if you're comparing high position and high paying, it's the same thing. We'd like to know if it's a general fact or just your personal opinion.
I would say it's a general fact that high position jobs are generally high paying.
Continue.
Thank you. So, what the government ought to consider is to redraft the current proposal so that the plan becomes one where the education system is expanded to offer a broad variety of subjects instead of having to limit it between those who they demean, instead of specializing to industries that they demand are.
Point of clarification.
Does the Honorable Deputy Leader of Opposition give way?
No.
Please be seated.
So so the government ought to redraft the current proposal so that the plan becomes one where the government offers a broad variety of subjects instead of limiting to industries that are dominated by expatriates. Now, what the government is really doing is they're failing to take into account any Caymanian in their own. Let me repeat, please. So as I say, the government is failing to understand the majority.
You have 1 minute warning.
Thank you. So the government is failing to take into account those Caymanians who aren't great at maths. The government is failing to take into account those who aren't great in science. In short, the government has simply failed in their own mission in helping the Caymanian people, since they only seek to ultimately reduce the population of expatriates in the Cayman Islands instead of seeking to actually empower Caymanians. As I say, if the government seeks to actually empower the Caymanian populace, I say they should start beginning with looking at the sorry state of the art system in the Cayman Islands right now. As I've said, that the government is only seeking to really expand expand industries that they want. In this case, they only want to expand industries that are dominated by expatriates. Yet they completely seek to miss the art system entirely. I say is that the art system in Cayman is currently in a sorry state of affairs due to what the government has been doing. Art is fundamentally at
Sorry,
core.
member, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak? If no other member wishes to speak, I will ask the mover of the motion to exercise her right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to address comments made by the opposition and to reinforce the main points of the government's motion. As we have said before, our motion is meant to advance the education of the people living on the islands, not to target and remove the current population of expatriates that currently inhabit the islands. As we enter this new age, we must look for ways to increase the ability of our people to compete with others in the workforce, both here and abroad. The people demand from us the very best that we can provide. The answer for a surprising amount of social issues and inequality is education. Education is the great equalizer that can allow anyone, no matter their birth or social status, to pull themselves up and to provide for their families and loved ones. The need for expatriate workers cannot be overstated, but our people should also be allowed to advance to the same standard of others that enter the islands. This should and will be available to students on this island. Madam Speaker, the cost of this expansion cannot be a reason to deny this motion and current plans underway by the government. These plans will be added on to current plans for the betterment of education overall in the islands. As the first elected member for Cayman Brac and Little Cayman said previously, if you think the cost of education is expensive, try ignorance. I would now like to address the comments made by the Deputy Speaker, who noted that the motion in its current form is not as detailed as it could be. The motion is simply a proposition to create a policy left at the discretion of an appropriate council or ministry that can take into account the complex immigration data and education policies to create the best possible plan for our small, diverse community. The amount also leaves the choice to students on the courses they choose by the courses themselves are tailored by the government to areas of employment with a high percentage of expatriates. The fourth elected member for Barton Town said during his address that our motion is too selective and only applies to doctorates and education grants. While his ideas are meaningfully and his proposition to focus on liberal arts is something that we should aspire to, he seems to have misinterpret our motion. In order to provide clarifications, I will just mention briefly that our motion is not just for doctorates and scholarships, and any tertiary education approved by any appropriate council or ministry would be considered in our motion. Bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, doctorates are all covered in the motion. The deputy leader of the opposition said during his address that our Caymanians are being excluded in the islands. The deputy leader using an old draft version of our motion while acting as if it was the final copy. The delude deputy leader has quite a unique view.
I would like to say that the member has said that I am going off an old draft, which they submitted, but I would like to tell the member that the old draft they submitted to me was regarded as their final copy, of which I had to work off of. So I must say that if the member really thinks that I was using the wrong copy, they should have given me the correct copy when we were giving each other our separate motions, as we have given them the final copy of ours. They should have given the final copy of theirs to us, so as to not have created this confusion whereby we have used the rough copy instead of using the correct final copy as they have said.
Continue. It's not our fault that you didn't get the correct copy, so yeah. Can I continue, please?
New member.
The deputy leader of the opposition said during his address that our Caymanians are being excluded in the islands. The deputy leader using an old draft version of our motion while acting as if it was the final copy. The delude deputy leader has quite a unique view and seems to enjoy reading drafts of motions. The deputy leader seems to be deep within the power of opposition and seems to believe creating alternative facts is equal to real facts. In fact, the basis of the majority of his argument seems to be constructed on falsehoods and opinions. In conclusion, the government...
But you gotta ask for a point of order.
Madam Speaker, may I please call for a point of order?
Does the...
No. In conclusion, may I continue?
Continue.
In conclusion, the government would like to reframe our ideas and intentions to create a unifying motion to expand education in the islands and allow for students to gain necessary employments in the islands. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is, be it now therefore resolved that the government considers reviewing the percentage of work permit holders in specific professions and creating a policy whereby local tertiary education courses, further qualifications such as doctorates and educational grants are concentrated to cover areas of employment where the percentage of work permit holders is high. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye. Those against, no?
No.
No.
The ayes have it. Private members,
Madam Speaker, may I have a division, please?
Madam Clerk, please state the division.
Honorable Laia McLaughlin,
Aye.
Honorable Leah Copeland,
Aye.
Honorable Judah Ebanks,
Aye.
Honorable Ashley Gooden,
Aye.
Honorable Taylor Wood,
Aye.
Honorable Zaria Linwood,
Aye.
Honorable Shakur Ebanks,
Aye.
Miss Khadija Watt,
Aye.
Miss Antonia Mina,
Aye.
Miss Ariana Stevenson,
Aye.
Mr. Isaac Tibbetts,
Aye.
Honorable Bianca Magoo,
No.
Mr. Richard Weber,
No.
Miss Caitlin Seymour,
No.
Miss Micah Ebanks,
No.
Miss Martha Andino,
No.
Miss Jackie Lee Bonilla Williams,
No.
Mr. Carlton Wright,
No.
Mr. Marcus Lawrence.
No.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The result of the division is 18 ayes and 8 noes. Sorry, 11 ayes and 8 noes. Private members, motion number 1 of 2017, creation of a policy to address educational skill gaps, analysis and judgment has passed. The House will suspend its proceedings for lunch. I will ask all members to return to the chamber promptly at 2:04 p.m.